Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video is going to concentrate on the calamities that befall Ellen DeGeneres, the train wrecks that seem to follow her wake as she cruises through the CIA clandestine service's Hollywood career that she has since I met her. I first met Ellen DeGeneres in San Leandro, California at a small nightclub. She was 19 years old. I was 19 years old myself. And there she was. And she was the opening act for Dr. Demento. Dr. Demento, who did a 90-minute act that followed Ellen DeGeneres' 30 minutes. I'm here to tell you that Ellen DeGeneres was a big surprise. She was very funny. She was not dressed up particularly elegantly. She was wearing blue jeans and sneakers, right? Like these little Converse low-top sneakers. Pretty much like today. She's very pedestrian, no makeup, and but her material was great, her delivery was great, she was great. So she won me over and made me into a fan. Dr. Demento, I watched for 10 minutes, and then I walked out because he was completely and utterly unfunny compared to Ellen DeGeneres, who knocked the ball out of the park, as they say. I told her I liked her act and wished her good luck. Had I known that she was going to have to fall into a Hollywood Screen Actors Guild cult, I probably would have told her to just don't pursue entertainment. Don't do it. I would have wanted to have saved her. Anyway, I didn't know. I was uninformed. Perhaps Ellen DeGeneres was uninformed as to the COVID cult. And you do know that COVID is an acronym, just like BISD or DOE, Department of Energy, IRS, Internal Revenue Service, CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, which really is a Murder Incorporated corporation. You know that COVID stands for Certificate of Vaccine Identification, because everybody knows that the flu is technical name is influenza, and the common cold's technical name is corona, the coronavirus, even though it's not really a virus. Anyway, I'm here to tell you that COVID, there's no disease named COVID. There's a Certificate of Vaccine Identification. So if you're not vaccinated, you don't have COVID. You can only have COVID if you're vaccinated and you have paperwork. If you have paperwork and you're vaccinated, you got COVID because you got identification. You can be ID'd. Unvaccinated are not participating in that program. All right. And by the way, 2022 is almost over. I've been to 4 funerals this year. All 100% vaccinated people died. I have been to 0 funerals for unvaccinated people. I don't even know any unvaccinated people who died. I know about 24 vaccinated people who are severely injured and are having corticosteroids, and one had stents installed, which is a crime, and that his doctor should be put into a prison camp. And I'm sure he got paid like, 20 grand to do something that's not going to solve his problems. But Medicare pays for that, so hey, God bless. You got to believe in Jesus or your God, because if you're vaccinated, you're probably going to see him pretty soon. So you better have some plan B, right? All right, so anyway, on the Ellen DeGeneres situation, her disc jockey was found shot in the head yesterday, Tuesday, December 12th, after late checkout. So I'm going to say that's around 1 o'clock p.m. on Tuesday at the Oak Tree Inn in Encino. To be real specific, I'm talking about 17448 Ventura Boulevard. It's almost at the corner of Encino Avenue and Ventura Boulevard. Now, if you've been watching my videos, you know that I did a video on the Phil Hartman murder, where he was killed 300 yards away from where Stephen Laurel Boss was murdered. Looks like that was a murder. The media already reported it a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now, you know that's untrue because, see, no medical examination has been performed. So how would the media know it was self-inflicted when the County of Los Angeles medical examiner doesn't know that? See, this is the magic of Hollywood. It's the magic of CIA media. See, they don't know what happened, but they know how to type up a cover story, right? And you can do that immediately. You can do that immediately when you get the green light. So you know it was a murder. It was a murder because the media said it wasn't a murder. Now, had the media said it was a murder, then, you know, I would have done my own research anyway. I don't believe anything they say. If they said it was a murder, then I think maybe it was a suicide, or I still want to see a body, you know, because in the case of Anne Heche, we don't have a death certificate and we don't have a body, and there are no witnesses. There are no credible witnesses that saw Anne Heche in the car. There's an incredible witness who's friends with Kato Kalin that says she was in there, and he abandoned her to when the house incinerated after he claims he was in the house. So it's like how did the fire, you know, postpone itself for 10 minutes while you could talk to Anne Heche, and then when the fire hits, you abandon her and leave her to die like a marshmallow on an open flame. So I'm not believing the David Manpearl story because he's a crisis actor. He's a clandestine service crisis actor, as was Kato Kalin for the O.J. Simpson clandestine services murder trial. All right, so Stephen Laurel Boss is kind of at the end of a list of people who Ellen DeGeneres knew who died, because before he died on Tuesday, December 12th, 2022, we had Kate Perkoff, and she died in 1980, and I met Ellen DeGeneres in 1978. So just a couple years after I met Ellen DeGeneres, her girlfriend, Kat Perkoff, age 23, crashed into a tree in Louisiana, and paradoxically, Ellen DeGeneres, who had broken up with her, drove home on that road past the accident scene, and didn't know that that was her ex-girlfriend, Kat Perkoff. But anyway, Kat Perkoff died in Louisiana in 1980 at the age of 23. Ellen DeGeneres was 22 years old. All right, and then fast forward until like 1995, 15 years later, Ellen DeGeneres has a scripted for television relationship with fake lesbian Anne Heche. We know Anne Heche is a fake lesbian because she's had 2 husbands and multiple, 2 children. So you can't be a lesbian and married to a man and have sons. You maybe could be a bisexual, but you couldn't be lesbian, according to my Webster's dictionary. But anyway, for the purposes of Hollywood, it was a lesbian relationship, and they took thousands of photographs of the two together. And so I'm going to call that definitely fake, because if it was real, you wouldn't want photographs taken of you and splashed all over the Hollywood gossip columns. But that's what they did. And then when they broke up in August 19th, 2000, allegedly, I'm not believing this incident involving anything to do with Anne Heche during the month of August. I'm going to say that's a made-up mendacity. Anyway, so she goes on what ABC News, Disney Corporation, defined as a post-breakup bender weekend up in Fresno County, where she pulled off Imperial Highway onto Highway 33, which is like a ghost highway. It's like Highway Interstate 66, right? Nobody usually uses that road. And she goes to the corner of Nebraska Road and Highway 33, where she abandons her car and then goes on foot. Okay, I'm just telling you right now, that's never happened in the history of Alta California. Father Junipero Serra wouldn't do something like that, okay? So, you know, I'm just telling you, I know that area, race bicycles there. Reason that we race bicycles there is because there's no traffic. And there isn't even much agricultural traffic there, okay? That is kind of a dead zone, and there's no gas station and there's no liquor store at that location. And so that would not be the place to abandon your car, all right? And then we hear that, you know, bender means drinking, and then they inject that she's on ecstasy. They have no proof of that. Then they say that she has a spaceship and that she's going to take everybody to see God, and blah, 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 blah. Breakup bender weekend, post-breakup bender weekend that maybe lasted 5 hours. And then Anne Heche drives back to Los Angeles, gets on a plane at LAX where she's seen. She flies to Toronto, Canada, where Barry and Honey Sherman were murdered by professional killers in Toronto, outside the city limits of Toronto in Ontario, Canada. And that is where Anne Heche flew to direct a film starring Denzel Washington, Toronto, Canada. That's where Neil Young, who doesn't own any music that's on Spotify, that he's going to pull, but he doesn't have any music on Spotify. Warner Brothers does. And last I checked, Neil Young doesn't have any authority at Warner Brothers. They own his music, not him. He doesn't own it. Talk to Paul McCartney about owning your music, okay? Because Paul McCartney doesn't own most of his music either. Talk to Sony. They have some legal patents on tunes. All right, so we had Kat Perkoff died at age 23 when Ellen DeGeneres was 21. Then we have Anne Heche goes on a breakup bender weekend but doesn't die. Then fast forward to this year on August 5th, where the media tells us that Anne Heche was killed in a fiery car crash, which I don't believe. And there's no witnesses. There's no credible witnesses that can say that she died in a fiery car crash. So then we have Ellen DeGeneres falls into a relationship with Alexandra Hedison. She's the daughter of David Henderson, who was in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, which Mad Magazine renamed Voyage to See What Was on the Bottom of the Sea. Anyway, so he's a Hollywood television actor, and his daughter has a relationship with Ellen DeGeneres, and then they break up, and then Alexandra Henderson marries Jodie Foster, Yale alumni and Hollywood film actress Jodie Foster, who went to Yale, which is a indoctrination center for our friends in clandestine services. And Jodie is a Screen Actors Guild card holder, right? So that's a Hollywood cult, clandestine service controlled. And then she gets married to Alexandra Hedison, if you believe that story. I don't know what to believe. I generally don't believe anything to do with Hollywood. All right? And then Ellen DeGeneres falls into the arms of Portia de Rossi, and they this weekend reported that they just are purchasing a $70 million estate property in Montecito on the ocean, right? Which means that I can ride my bicycle in front of their house because there's an easement. There are two easements on all the shoreline property in Montecito. One is a bike path, and the other is the Amtrak train. So I don't think Ellen DeGeneres is thinking too coherently here because of the fact that why would you want to live in a $70 million home with a train making noise at 3 o'clock in the morning? Because there's nowhere to hide in that zip code where the Four Seasons Hotel is. There's nowhere to hide in Montecito. That is like the ghetto. I consider that the ghettos. It's the slum. That is the slum of Santa Barbara. Anywhere near the railroad tracks in Santa Barbara is the ghetto. And you're going to tell me you're going to spend $70 million to live in the ghetto? You should be up on Hot Springs Road, well set back up on the hill so that mudslides can't get you, because we did have some fatalities where people were killed in a mudslide a few years ago. So I don't want mudslides in Montecito, and I don't want that wicked Amtrak train. But anyway, that was in the news, and then bang, bang, just like a gunshot, we have Stephen Laurel Boss, who goes by the nickname of Twitch Boss, who's the disc jockey for Ellen DeGeneres' talk show. And the media says, self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head, and found in a room at $107 a night hotel room, no frills, a.k.a. the cheapest hotel in Los Angeles County, Oak Tree Inn in Encino, and I'll be real specific, 17448 Ventura Boulevard. There's only 26 rooms in that hotel, right? 26 rooms. And it's a one-level hotel, except for the front rooms, there's upstairs, downstairs. But the majority of rooms at the Oak Tree Inn are level in. You park your car and you go into your room. And I can't believe there's a hotel in Los Angeles County that's $107 a night. That's cheap. That's really cheap for Encino. And I mean, $250 a night is cheap. $250 is cheap. This is less than half of that. Anyway, you should know, if you watch my videos, I did a Phil Hartman murder video. Phil Hartman lives about 300 yards away from where Stephen Laurel Boss was murdered. Someone shot him in the head, just like someone shot Phil Hartman in the head. They said his wife, Byrne, did, but possibly it was a professional killer, right? Do you think that Barry Sherman killed him? I mean, garroted himself, or you think someone did that for him? I believe it was professional killing. And I believe Phil Hartman was a professional killing. I don't think his wife did it. It's possible, but you got to remember, when it's Hollywood, it's probably professional. And then we have the Phil Hartman murder happened on May 28th, 1998. You either believe a professional killer did that or his second wife, Byrne. In any case, he was definitely murdered, not suicided. And in the case of the media calling Stephen Laurel Boss's murder a suicide, you know that's false, because the medical examiner of Los Angeles County hasn't even performed their exam, so they don't know that it was self-inflicted. How could the media know? And the answer is, the media knows nothing. They're just reading teleprompters or typing up whatever the CI script is. They're in the mendacity business. Anyway, there's absolutely no motivation for Stephen Boss to commit suicide. He's married to Allison Holker, age 34, 6 years younger than him. They have 3 children. They have a daughter that Allison had from a previous relationship that Stephen Boss adopted. They were married on December 10th, 2013, so they just celebrated their 9th year anniversary. That would have been on Sunday. Their 9th year anniversary was Sunday. And you're going to tell me he walks away without his automobile. He left the home without his car, and then he walks in close proximity to Phil Hartman's murder site and checks into a $107 a night room at 17448 Ventura Boulevard, and then blows his brains out. With what gun? I don't know where the gun came from. Did they find a gun? Where's the gun? Who owned the gun? Is there a gun? I don't know. That information is not available. But it doesn't really make any difference if she, and again, because a gun can be planted, right? It's like saying that Charlie Watson's fingerprint was in the inside, door jamb of the front door. There is zero possibility that that could happen. There's no chance. No one's fingerprint could be there. So the only fingerprint that allegedly could have been there would be a planted fingerprint, or just a mendacity story. Or that Susan Atkins' footprint, one footprint, was found. First of all, nobody on the property was barefoot. Number 2 is, if you found one footprint, you should find dozens of footprints. But oh no, we just find one random footprint. Or that Patricia Krenwinkel's pinky finger was found on the master room door exiting to the swimming pool. There is zero probability that a pinky print will be found on that door. None. Not when Abigail Folger goes storming through the thing, running for her life, just before she gets bayoneted 28 times with the M7 NATO standard bayonet. Ain't no pinky print anywhere around. So I want to know about the bullet and the forensics. I don't know that it'll be accurate or truthful, but I would just like to have more information before I start chiming in about self-inflicted wounds. All right, so what I wanted to tell you is that Ellen DeGeneres had Kat Perkoff, who she had an intimate relationship with, die in a fiery car crash. Then she had Anne Heche die in a fiery car crash, except I don't believe that ever happened. But that's what the media wants you to believe. And then Ellen DeGeneres' next lesbian relationship marries Jodie Foster, who's a Yale indoctrinated Hollywood cult actress, Jodie Foster. And then we have Portia de Rossi, who they just buy a $70 million home next to a railroad track called Amtrak, which I don't believe that either. I would never want to live next to a railroad track. So nothing about Ellen DeGeneres makes sense. And the only thing that made sense was when I first met her and I watched her do 30 minutes, and it just seemed so innocent and charming. So that seemed authentic, but everything since Ellen DeGeneres got a Screen Actors Guild card and was swallowed up by CIA Hollywood is fake. Her relationships are fake, her stories are fake, her homes are fake, her lifestyle is fake. Everything is scripted for television. She's a social engineer for gay women, I guess. And I'm not following any of the virtue signaling that Ellen DeGeneres said. She should have just left it, her act alone, and then I would be a fan. I am no longer a fan of Ellen DeGeneres. You know, I liked what Dakota Johnson sassed her back on the show. Dakota Johnson, who's completely and utterly controlled by the clandestine services through Dawn Johnson and Melanie Griffith and Tippi Hedren, who I've personally met, Tippi Hedren, which is Dakota Johnson's grandmother, and I really liked Tippi Hedren, really liked her. But you'll notice she moved, I think, to Minnesota. She got the heck out of Dodge. And that's what I want for 33-year-old Dakota Johnson. I want her to quit and get out now. Although you got to be careful because, when Sharon Tate did that, it didn't work out too well for Sharon Tate. Didn't work out too well for when Lena LaBianca quit. It didn't work out too well for Abigail Folger when she quit. So I kind of take back my advice to Dakota Johnson. I just would, if I was you, just really do a lousy job acting, and maybe they'll pull you from the business. Make it their decision. Just, if I was you, don't remember your lines and stop reading the cue cards, because I think I'd like to see you survive. I really would. So don't quit, but don't help the clandestine services exploit you any further than they've already done. Anyway, that's the story today of Stephen Laurel Boss, age 40. I believe he was murdered. Walking distance from where he lives in Encino, which is walking distance from Phil Hartman's murder scene. And you remember 1 year later we had the William Shatner death of his third wife at the bottom of a swimming pool, on the anniversary date of Sharon Tate's murder, which was August 9th, 1999. It's the 30th year anniversary. William Shatner, about 18 minutes away from where Ellen DeGeneres' disc jockey Stephen Boss was murdered, about 20 minutes away, William Shatner's third wife, Noreen, was murdered naked in the pool, in the deep end. When he came home, he didn't dive in the pool to rescue her. He called 911, and the 911 operator told him to go jump in the pool and rescue her. But I think William Shatner knew she was already dead, so why mess up your clothes? Anyway, and 300 yards away from where Stephen Laurel Boss was murdered, Phil Hartman was murdered on May 5th, 1998. And I'll be real specific. Phil Hartman was murdered in his home at 5065 Encino Avenue. You could Google that and check the distance to 17448 Ventura Boulevard. You'll find it's 0.2 of a mile. That's about 320 yards. Think that's a coincidence? That is also in close proximity to where Eric Menendez grew up, and Jose and Kitty Menendez were building a house in Calabasas, which is walking distance from this address. However, it'd be more like a mile to 1.5 miles away from this murder scene would be where the Jose Menendez lived. They did not live in Beverly Hills where they were killed. That's a theme, people. People are not killed where they live. Sharon Tate was not killed where she lived. William Shatner's third wife, Noreen, she didn't own that house. William Shatner supposedly had the rights to that house. I don't know if he owned it either, but he lived in it for a long time. So Noreen was killed in a home that didn't technically belong to hers. Sharon Tate didn't live in a home that belonged to her. Lena LaBianca wasn't killed in a home that belonged to him. He belonged to his mother. He lived in the Walt Disney Mansion, which he sold. That's why he was in his mother's house temporarily till he moved into his San Diego ranch. And I can go down the list. Generally speaking, people don't get killed in their home. I mean, yes, Jerome Ota, Dr. Victor Ota, killed in the Frank Lloyd Wright house, appeared to be his home, or maybe he was just using it, right? Because it's kind of an expensive home. All right, that's it for today. Stephen Laurel Boss killed at the Oak Tree Inn, Encino, at $107 a night room. And I believe he was killed probably Monday night, and then he didn't check out, so the maid went in to check on him around noon to 1 o'clock and found him dead. And they haven't even done the autopsy, and the media's already written it up as a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Bye-bye.